Helping to whip the Wii's action library into shape, the ominously titled Cursed Mountain materializes as a somber thriller with a twist. It shucks away more far-fetched notions of the occult with the eerie possibility of vengeful Tibetan spirits, canning the experience in a high-altitude survival horror set in the Himalayas. It's certainly an intriguing premise, but some precipices aren't worth the climb.
Sounds like crap to me, but I don't have much choice.
Very powerful, Yukini. Very holy.
Cursed Mountain drops you in the snowshoes of Eric Simmons, a climber on a personal mission to find his missing brother Frank. The few clues he has to go by point to the fictional peaks of Chomolonzo, where Frank was said to be pursuing an ancient and mysterious Buddhist artifact. As Eric ascends its perilous cliffsides, he's stricken with a curse that stirs the restless spirits of the dead. Battling the terrible visions that befall him, Eric trudges on in the blind hope that his brother hasn't already been claimed by the mountain's treacherous heights. Though it doesn't necessarily score with its anemic cinematic interludes, Cursed Mountain definitely earns some points for originality. Its commitment to its Buddhist and Tibetan themes is refreshing, even if it doesn't completely manage to follow through with the immersion. The ensuing developments leading up to the climax feel sparse and overextended, but at a svelte 8 to 10 hours, you can take comfort in knowing that this sojourn into the snow won't outstay its welcome.
There must be something else.
With its eager sampling of survival horror tropes, Cursed Mountain ventures into some very familiar territory. The scattered breadcrumbs of clues, journal entries, and life-giving incense sticks is a very traditional, if not conservative, take on the Silent Hill paradigm, while the vision-shifting mechanic owes much to the shutterbug styling of Fatal Frame. The game shoots for individuality primarily through its distinctively themed environments, and that's a minor victory thanks to its moody vistas and dilapidated base camps. Notes on Buddhist principles set the tone for those with the inclination to read them, but the overall spiritual presentation feels more like a facet of the game that, instead of being elegantly woven into its seams, is literally thrown at your feet. The biggest grievance the Cursed Mountain is victim to, however, is a general lack of atmosphere. The absence of an engrossing narrative and driving mission objectives make all the macabre imagery feel hollow, and its excessive reliance on highly telegraphed monster closets work against the game's subtler elements. The game's snail-like pace can make it feel like it takes hours to get from one snowbound locale to the other, and though the game is successful at establishing its setting, it's less so at pulling at the right strings to see you through each one.
She asked for something that belonged to Frank. Muttering, murmuring.
Vastly outnumbered by the embittered specters of fallen Sherpas and monks, the odds suddenly don't look good for Eric's rescue expedition. But thanks to the power of Buddhism, Eric finds himself with an elegant solution to the ghostly threat: a laser-shooting ice pick. As you line up the sights on your spiritually enhanced tool, the game switches gears into something of a third-person shooter, where the resulting barrage of religious energy depends on the attachment currently on your pick. It all sounds rightly ridiculous, and it certainly doesn't do the atmosphere any favors. Progression is somewhat appreciable, however, thanks to slight upgrades to your spirit-scouring armaments, allowing you to better face some threats, like flying monks, with the appropriate weapon type. The bigger gimmick, however, rests with Eric's ability to peer into the spirit realm, revealing weak points that signify which enemies and obstacles can be exorcised with the careful execution of Buddhist meditation poses. In Wii speak, this translates to some spastic waggling. You'll receive prompts denoting which way to direct your spiritual chakras, but with inputs that barely register half the time, you'll find yourself cursing motion controls more than the mountain. It's that frustrating.
Got to get away.
In all, this crag has its share of peaks and valleys, marred mostly by its inelegant implementation of motion controls. The game deserves some credit for mixing things up with the right dose of action, but with such an unwieldy control scheme, it all ultimately suffers.
Primus log. 18,700 feet.
On an artistic level, Cursed Mountain strikes an appropriately realistic look that sits well with the graphical limitations of the Wii. The interface wisely retracts into oblivion to draw attention to Chomolonzo's keenly built locales, and the visual effect that results from every jump into the spirit realm looks genuinely cool. Overall, the game's production values are respectable, even if a bit coarse, in achieving the right mood for the occasion. However, it would have been nice to see some more use out of the raspy transmissions sent directly to your Wiimote speakers.
There's some kind of high-altitude hallucination.
Cursed Mountain is an earnest attempt at staking its own niche in the survival horror space, but uninspired gameplay and clumsy controls keep it from reaching its own summit. It doesn't go far beyond an interesting concept, and unless you're willing to pay the price for a few fleeting hours into the maw of Chomolonzo, this one is better left on ice.
Prayer spears no longer protect. Bad place hurts ignorance.